a bit of something to the fragrance was the gateway drug. With that, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I need to try this fragrance. Do any of you have really fond memories of the fragrances that you have in your collection? I feel like a lot of the fragrances that I've bought over the years, they've definitely meant something in my life, whether that was a transition or a big event was happening in my life, and at that time I just bought the fragrance, and since then it's been like a really nice memory. I know a lot of you down in the comments, you tend to give me stories of, you know, when you wore the fragrances, why you bought the fragrances, and I feel like there's definitely a special meaning attached to these perfumes. Now, what I will say is obviously they are material goods, so there isn't really necessarily anything that should be attached to them in the first place, but I guess the reason why we all have these lovely memories with, you know, specific fragrances, or even sometimes sad memories, the smells are a direct link to the limbic system. So a lot of the times whenever we attach smells or odors in our lives, it's directly linked to our memories, and I feel like that is a massive reason as to why maybe fragrances become a little bit more sentimental in our lives in comparison to other things. Now granted, it's not just fragrances, it smells in your life. Like maybe when you were a child, you cooked a specific dish, and ever since then, whenever you smell this dish, it just brings you back directly to your childhood. There are a lot of things in this world that always provoke, you know, memories and trigger memories. So I just think it would be something a little bit different for you guys. So I will, you know, kind of go through a few fragrances here, why they made an impact in my life, you know, how they changed the fragrance game for me. And before we do, this is like a super tangent by the way, but I needed to show you guys this. So one of my friends at work, they recommended this from Loewe. Now I'm not one to spend like a lot of money when it comes to hair care products. I'll spend a lot of money on like highlights and stuff like that, but not necessarily on products themselves. I know that's really weird considering I spend so much money on fragrances, but I feel as though that's like two separate things. So this is like their scalp serum, and when I tell you, ladies and gents, because I feel men can definitely wear this as well, the scent is unbelievable. It's so beautiful. It's really green and herbaceous and a bit spa-like as well. It's a bit ozonic. As soon as I smelt it, I thought, oh my goodness, this could literally be a fragrance by itself. And anyway, it's meant to promote new hair growth, scalp treatment kind of thing, so we'll see how that goes. I actually naturally have quite a lot of hair, so I don't know whether I need any more hair in my life, but you know, just for maintaining hair over time, and even for guys as well, if any men are watching this, definitely give this a try. I've read really good reviews about this product, and you know, I'm really excited to start using it. Granted, I've only used it for the past couple of weeks, if not even less, so I don't know whether it's actually working or not. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you this to begin with. So the first fragrance that I want to show you guys is one that I bought a few years ago. I went on a trip to Jersey with my partner, and actually I'm going again in the next week, which is quite exciting. So we're going for less than a week, but I'm really quite looking forward to just being able to relax and chill out. And Jersey, it's a beautiful island. So you have all of the Channel Islands like Guernsey, Jersey, Isles of Scilly, etc. And it's just a really beautiful hotspot. It's kind of a mix of British and French culture, and it has some really beautiful yellow, almost white sand beaches. And before we actually boarded the plane, I thought to myself, I really want to check out the various fragrances that they have in duty free. And at the time, Chloe had just launched this range, which is the Atelier des Fleurs, which kind of represents specific singular florals all across the line. And they had one which is Jasminum Sambac, which is obviously dedicated to the flower of jasmine. And you know, jasmine, you have different types of jasmine. Obviously you have jasmine Sambac, which is the indolic night blooming jasmine. With that, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I need to try this fragrance. And as soon as I tried it, I just knew that it would be the perfect summer vacation perfume. And the reason why I say that is because it's a beautiful mix of a very light jasmine, like a floral bushy jasmine, alongside a slight indolic jasmine, where it kind of has like a bit of dirtiness, but it's not so indolic where it takes over the entirety of the fragrance. I don't know whether this is actually in the notes, by the way, but I definitely get like a little bit of a marine salty quality in this fragrance. And actually the perfume that it really reminds me of, and maybe like a more floral version of it, is Eden Rock from Chloe from Dior, which I'll just pop up a picture here. I also own that fragrance. That one I would say is a little bit more salty in comparison to this one, but this definitely still has a very ozonic, marine, mineralistic type of quality towards the base. And you know, every single person that I have in my life, anybody who ever asks me about fragrances, I always say to them, buy a fragrance, or you know, purchase the one that you really want just before a big life event or before you're going away on holiday, for example, because every time you smell this particular fragrance, it will just bring you right back to when you were there. And you know, this has the very same effect for me. I wear it very sparingly, but every single time that I smell it, it just brings me back to Jersey. And every time that we visit Jersey, I always wear this fragrance. So it's one that I absolutely adore. It's really feminine, very beautiful, airy, light. Considering it is a little bit more in the floral, citrusy, marine-like style of fragrance, it does last particularly well. So you know, this will last you at least 4 or 5 hours throughout the day, and especially in the humidity or the heat, this really blooms very well on your skin. So anyway, for any holiday lovers, definitely do that, because it always brings back really beautiful memories. So from Chloe, we have Jasminum Sambac. So this next fragrance is actually for the gents, weirdly enough, and it's actually one of my partner's favorite fragrances. He's had all different Tom Fords in his life. He's had Neroli Portofino, this one, he's had Black Orchid, all sorts from their line. He absolutely loves Tom Ford. Not so much anymore now, maybe because a lot of the fragrances have been a little bit lackluster, but particularly the initial ones when they were first launched, he absolutely loves those ones. And this one, the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because he used to wear this alongside Neroli Portofino at the same time. Now, Neroli Portofino was practically his first fresh fragrance from Tom Ford. But he also wore Black Orchid in the evenings as well. Now, when he bought this a few years into us dating, every single time that he would wear this fragrance, it was almost like a magnetic field around him. Now, don't ask me why. I think it might be to do with his chemistry. It's his skin, his pheromones that mix so well with this particular fragrance. But every single time he would wear it, gents, I would go insane. So since then, every time that I smell this, it just reminds me, you know, you develop as a relationship, don't you? I mean, you start to love each other more and more deeply as years goes on, but in the very, you know, beginning years of our relationship, it just brings me back to all of the beautiful memories of, you know, when we first started to really get to know each other properly, when we started to form a really deep bond. And I think sometimes that's important, not only for females, but also for guys. So any gents watching, if you have a wife or a significant other, or even maybe like a past girlfriend that you used to really love, I think it's really special when she wears that specific fragrance. It just brings you back to the time that you really, you know, truly started to bond and develop a really beautiful relationship. I'm getting really soppy here, aren't I? But you know, this is the whole point of this video, right? And Sole di Positano is one that really just triggers that memory for me. Obviously Neroli Portofino was also gorgeous on him, but this is a really unusual mix of citruses alongside these really kind of more harsh white florals like neroli, orange blossom, maybe there's a bit of jasmine in here, and it has this really weird, like, cucumbery fresh greenness kind of going on in this. If you can imagine maybe like a Neo from Xerjoff or like an Ozel from Xerjoff, that kind of like really bright, screechy neroli type of fragrance mixed with a bit more of a citrus ozonic Neroli Portofino from Tom Ford. It's like the two have had a baby and they've created this absolutely gorgeous fragrance that is Sole di Positano. Now, literally, I mean, they couldn't have picked a better name. This is quite literally as if you're just driving by the coast, you're going by the Amalfi Coast maybe, and you have these really beautiful bushy white florals just cascading down the hills, and you have this gorgeous salt water that's just hitting you as soon as you're driving. And you know, I'm really kind of romanticizing how I'm picturing this fragrance, but really on any gent, I just think this is one of the best fragrances that you can possibly wear for the summer. Now granted, the only bad thing I guess about this fragrance is the longevity. It's not particularly amazing. So when you are wearing this, you do have to reapply it multiple times, which is a bit unfortunate. But what I will say is that it creates a really fantastic scent bubble around you, to the point where it becomes quite cozy, clean, fresh, as if you've just come out of the shower. But it's something a little bit more than just an after shower scent, if you know what I mean. So from the house of Tom Ford, we have Sole di Positano. Now moving on to possibly my most favorite Tom Ford fragrance of all time, and that's a massive statement coming from somebody who really loves the brand. Now, I did a video somewhat recently talking about the price hikes within the fragrance community. If you haven't checked that one out, link up below or down below. Don't even know what I'm talking about. And that was really interesting because a lot of people kind of agreed with me on that one, in the sense that they do like the older Tom Ford fragrances, but realistically they've hiked the prices up so much to the point where it doesn't seem plausible for you to buy a fragrance at that cost. I mean, some of them are ridiculous, like within the $500–600 range, which I just genuinely don't believe they're worth that much money. However, saying that, I have a lot of Tom Ford fragrances within my collection, and this is one that holds a lot of dear memories for me. So this is Jasmine Rouge. This shouldn't really come as a surprise for any of you. If you've known me for a while, you know how much I love this fragrance. My God. Oh, you see, there are very few in my collection that make such an impact as much as this one does. Now, Jasmine Rouge is literally the epitome of what a floral fragrance should be like. It's not a boring floral fragrance in my opinion. It has a lot of layers to it, and it's super duper sexy. Every time that I used to wear this, you know, people were complimenting me constantly. It just developed really well on my skin. Probably say the Jasmine Sambac, the night blooming jasmine in here, is the most prominent. Now, what they've done in here, which is very clever, is they have married the jasmine with other floral notes, including ylang-ylang. Now, the ylang-ylang adds this whole different dimension to the jasmine. Jasmine in of itself is quite exotic smelling anyway, and then the mixture of the ylang-ylang, which is this beautiful yellow floral, it adds this buttery element to a fragrance. It really adds like this whole different dimension. Now, granted, you know, people can really, or perfume houses can really overdo ylang-ylang, and sometimes it can smell soapy, but maybe not in the right way. Whereas the mixture of the jasmine and this yellow floral makes it smell a little bit banana-esque. Like, you know, jasmine and tuberose and these white florals, they can go in many different directions, but it smells like banana, sparse, slightly spicy. It has like peppers and maybe like a bit of ginger in the top, and then towards the base it's slightly woody. So to me, it almost has like a bit of a sandalwood touch. It's soft, it's buttery, but it's still a little bit warm in the base, and that just adds to the overall sexiness of this fragrance. So overall, you have a night blooming jasmine mixed with other exotic florals. Alongside that, you have a bit of spice in the beginning, which adds a bit of something to the fragrance, and towards the end you have these warm ambery woods that are just going on. So to me, this is just magic in a bottle. So if you've never tried it, definitely try Jasmine Rouge from Tom Ford. Now, the next fragrance, again, will not come as a shock to any of you. As you guys know, I'm a huge fan of Ormonde Jayne, and I couldn't have done this video without, first of all, showing my favorite brand at the minute, and has been for quite a while now, and second of all, not showing the fragrance that started it all for me, and that is Taif from Ormonde Jayne. Now, this fragrance, the moment that I set my nose on this, I knew that I would fall in love with, you know, the rest of the fragrances within the collection. Now, they used to have all of these different fragrances, which some of them have been discontinued. There used to be one called Rose Gold. There was also the original to Vanille des Afriques, which was Vanille d'Iris, I think that's how you pronounced it. There have been many fragrances within the Ormonde Jayne brand that have been unbelievable. I mean, even for the men, for example, you've had Ormonde Man. For the women, you have Ormonde Woman. You also have Nawab of Oud, which I know is a really popular one. Understandably, I understand why it is so popular. It's a cult favorite, but again, a lot of people tend to lean to those ones, whereas for me, the real star was always Taif. Now, a lot of people might find this a bit boring, but once you really get to understand the fragrance and once you wear it, you really appreciate how beautiful it is. The star of the show is obviously the Taif rose, and I believe Taif is a sort of Damascus rose, but it's from a specific region in Saudi Arabia. And what I love about Ormonde, and I didn't realize this until I started buying the fragrances, is that Linda, who's the owner of Ormonde, she has traveled to practically all of the parts of the world. I mean, she is one of the most well-traveled people I've come across, and, you know, I've read her story, and I've read the, you know, different stories when she comes to explaining why she's picked specific ingredients, and this is one that I think she's really utilized in the right way. And this Taif rose is a different level of beautiful and feminine. It's a very pink, flushy, almost peony. I know peony and rose are two different flowers, by the way, but it almost has this champagne-like quality to the fragrance. It's really vibrant, it's sweet, it's feminine. You have dates, you have pink pepper, you have all of these concoctions that, you know, marry really well with the Taif rose. Like, I always feel like peppers and saffron, they marry really well with rose because they give off that slightly spicy nuance to it, right? And then you mix that with these sweet date notes and these ambery notes. It is genius in the bottle. And what I didn't realize, actually, so I knew that Ormonde have been around for about 20 years or so, but this was one of their first ever releases. So this was released in 2004 with Guerlain, who was obviously like the master perfumer behind the brand, and he's done Eccentric Molecules, and you kind of see how he's had a bit of an impact on this fragrance in the sense that Eccentric Molecules can be very light, fluffy, and a little bit strange, but in their own way, right? And this one kind of has that slight molecular feel to it, but still with it being very feminine, classic, floral. It really is an unbelievable fragrance, and I know a lot of you guys, you've bought it based on my recommendation, and it's one of your favorite fragrances as well. So I couldn't have done a video without featuring Taif from Ormonde because this one literally just kicked it all off for me. And since then, I've tried basically nearly every fragrance in their brand, and I just love the house so much. I'm affiliated with them, which is a huge honor for me. So, you know, I always like to promote things that I genuinely believe in. There are very few things that I've promoted because I'm, first of all, very picky, and I know that you guys trust me, and I would never ever want to kind of push anything that I didn't really necessarily believe in or what I didn't think was beautiful or worth spending money on. And Ormonde is just one of those houses where I know they're slightly more expensive, they are niche, they're exclusive, and they really have some very special fragrances. So anyway, that is that one. So the next fragrance had a bit of an impact for me because I realized that all of the, you know, fragrances that I tried in this specific olfactive group, I just didn't find the right one for me. And Chypre fragrances were always a little bit, sometimes too mature, because obviously I'm a bit younger anyway, and I found them to either be a little bit too scratchy or a bit too green sometimes, or foresty for me. And, you know, I always really struggled with that olfactive group. Having said that though, I know a lot of you guys also really like that group, and I do have a lot of Chypre fragrances in my collection, but I didn't really realize that they were Chypre fragrances, if that makes sense. I think a lot of like the 90s or even 80s fragrances that are that Chypre type of quality, they can be a little bit overwhelming, no? Like a little bit overstimulating. And sometimes I just didn't get on with them too well until when I came across this specific fragrance. It completely changed the game for me. I thought, do you know what? This is probably one of the best Chypre fragrances I've ever tried in my life. And to this day, it's one of those ones where every time that I wear it, it just brings a lot of joy to my life. So this is Eau Du Soir from Sisley. Now, this one was actually launched back in 1990. And if you guys know the brand of Sisley, they're actually a beauty house. So they have lots of cosmetics, makeup, various different things, very tailored towards, you know, maybe more mature women. Having said that though, I think recently over time they've kind of tried to target younger and younger women, possibly a younger generation that really appreciates their fragrances. Now, this is not the only fragrance that I have From their collection, I also have Azia, I have Azia La Nuit, I really love Soir d'Orient. There's all different types of ones that I adore from their brand, but this one is definitely my favorite. Now, Eau Du Soir is your typical chypre fragrance, but what makes it very special is it kind of has this spa-like quality to it. It's very calming. The oak moss in here is a really big player, and typically oak moss for me is a very difficult notes to kind of get my head around, whereas this one is very smooth. That married with some wood and, you know, some patchouli in the background, it's a really gorgeous fragrance. And I think what I love about this is the patchouli is prominent, but it's not too overwhelming. Again, patchouli is a note that I really struggle with sometimes, but this is just the perfect balance between everything. You have citruses in the top, you have these beautiful florals in the mid with a mix of like rose, geranium, you know, your typical chypre notes, and then towards the base you have this lovely concoction of oak moss, maybe a bit of sandalwood, patchouli, and it is just a really elegant fragrance. And considering it is a chypre olfactive group, I wouldn't say that this leans too mature or too old-fashioned. It kind of still has this modern take on it, and God knows where that's coming from. Maybe there's like a little bit of spice in the beginning that's kind of adding this like slight edge to it, but overall it's a beautiful fragrance. And considering it is a bit on the greener spa-like side, I actually get a lot of compliments whenever I wear this fragrance, and particularly in the spring months I often wear this fragrance, and it has an amazing impact on the people around me. So from the house of Sisley, we have Eau Du Soir. Now from the house of Loewe, which as you guys know is probably one of my most favorite designer fragrance houses that are out there. Now I know Loewe are known for all of their bags, their leather goods, etc. But you know, the one thing that I'm still really shocked about is that people don't really give them kudos when it comes to their fragrances. Now, their fragrances are probably one of the best when it comes to the designer picks that you have out there. Of course, you have beautiful houses like Giorgio Armani, Tom Ford, etc. But this is just heaven in a bottle. And you know, I have a really lovely memory with this. So initially, I was just perusing around Selfridges, this was some years ago now, and I came across this gent who was so lovely, warm and welcoming, and he introduced me to this specific fragrance. Now, if it wasn't for him, and if it wasn't for his kindness, for his really friendly nature, I would have never come across this fragrance, and I would have never given it a try. And since then, I have kind of delved into the Loewe rabbit hole. I've bought discontinued fragrances. I've even considered buying them from you know, different countries and getting them imported, just because they've had some really gorgeous fragrances over the years. And Mayrit for me was the gateway drug, literally. And this is a beautiful concoction of passion fruit, beautiful orange blossom. It's fruity, it's vibrant, it's sweet, it has a bit of amber in the base. The orange blossom here is very vibrant. That mixed with the passion fruit almost makes it smell a little bit more like a cocktail in a weird way, without the added booziness, right? And you know, a lot of people who I've put this fragrance onto, they've also said to me that this has become one of their most beautiful and most treasured fragrances in their collection. And I think what makes this so special is because it's kind of a combination of everything, but the fruitiness makes it smell almost like realistically juicy, which very few fragrances can pull that off. But when you initially spray this and when you layer it with different fragrances, it smells juicy and fruity and dewy. It literally smells like you can eat it off your skin, and you know, not in like a gourmand way, but in a fruity, beautiful way, which is really bizarre. And you know, since then I've bought a lot of other ones. Bella Cibeles, I've also bought El Cielo sobre la Plaza, I've also bought in the past San Miguel, but then I returned it because it didn't quite work on my skin. There have been so many in the brands that have blown me away, and to this day it's just one of the best designer brands that I've ever come across. So if you guys have never tried anything from Loewe, this to me was the gateway, and it might be the gateway for you guys. So if you are into fruity fragrances, if you are into fragrances that maybe have that added juiciness to it, then definitely try Mayrit. Since then, they have repackaged the fragrances, so they have like a marble top as opposed to this. They also have a rectangular frosted glass bottle. I have done a specific review of the house, and I will probably do maybe like an updated version of that, so check that video out. I'll just pop it up here. But from Loewe we have Mayrit. I'm just going to end the video with a fragrance that unfortunately I don't have in my collection anymore, but it was one that probably kind of opened the world of fragrances to me. Now obviously when I was younger I still wore very like teenagey style of fragrances. I actually used to wear a lot of fragrances from the Body Shop, funnily enough, which is like a big enterprise here in the UK, or franchise I should say. Since then they've closed down a lot of their stores, but I used to love the Body Shop and all of their fragrances and their body sprays, etc. They've been around for so long. But you know, I wore various different fragrances like Britney Spears, all the like celebrity younger fragrances when I was a teenager. But one fragrance which blew me away when I was younger, and it was actually the gateway to Guerlain for me. Everyone normally attributes Guerlain to Shalimar, Samsara, Linstant, you know, that purpley kind of bottle. But for me, the fragrance, weirdly enough, that just brought everything to the surface was Terracotta. Now I'm going to put a picture up here of Terracotta and how it looks like. For me, it was the first ever fragrance that I felt like a woman. I know that sounds really bizarre, but when I initially smelt it, I was like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. And I kept sniffing it and I thought, that's a bit different. And I couldn't put my finger onto it. I thought to myself, oh, it could be maybe a little bit more mature for me. Maybe it's not for me. But the more that I wore it, the more special and magical it became. Now, if you guys have ever tried Terracotta, you know exactly what I mean. Terracotta is an exotic sunscreeny type of fragrance. So it has tiare flower, it has coconut. I might even have some sandalwood, to be honest, because it kind of has this pencil shavings, powdery type of feel to it. But it was one of the first ever tropical fragrances that I tried that genuinely blew me away. You know, granted, it still has a bit of a sunscreeny type of smell because of the mixture of tiare flower. There might even be some ylang-ylang in it as well. But it blew me away because it was the perfect combination of sweet, floral, powdery, and slightly tropical, as if you're going away on holiday type of vibe. And you know, it still definitely had a little bit of a mature element to it, with it being Guerlain and formulated from Guerlain, but it was something completely different that I'd never tried before. I'd tried coconut fragrances, but at that time they weren't particularly popular. I'll be honest with you. Gourmand fragrances weren't really popular back then, or you know, super tropical or anything like that. It was only fragrances that had a slight hint of coconut or a slight hint of tiare flower and ylang-ylang, and that really brought everything to life for me. I thought, oh my goodness, this is something completely different. I've never tried anything like this before. And again, similar to the Mayrit from the Loewe, it became the gateway fragrance for all of the other perfumes within Guerlain. Anyway, I just thought that would be really interesting, guys, you know, kind of fragrances that changed the game for me. Have there been any fragrances or perfumes that have really made a massive impact in your lives? And if so, why? I'd really like to know in the comments down below. So you guys have a fantastic weekend and I will see you soon. Bye guys.